The Indianapolis Colts put the pads on for day 5 of training camp, and the quarterbacks showed out. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you all for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. This daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first purchase. Hello, everyone. My name is Zach Hicks, your resident film nerd of HorseshoeHuddle.com. And my partner, as always, is Jake Arthur, our credentialed Crocs on the ground for the site. Although Jake was not there today at practice. He had an appointment this morning, so he wasn't able to make it at practice. But don't worry, we have connections with Colts media. You know, Jake is usually boots on the ground, so he's pretty buddy-buddy with everybody there at Colts facility. So we were able to get the lowdown on what happened at Colts training camp today. So we're going to break down, again, as always, the quarterbacks, the offense, the defense, and just dive into this Colts team. But before we get into the quarterbacks, let's talk about some roster moves, news, and notes. Jack Wilson, Jake's favorite player on the roster because his 7-foot-tall frame, was placed on injured reserve, so he will miss the entire season here with, I think it was a pec injury is what the Colts called it. In the retroactive move the Colts made is they signed Josh Tupou, defensive tackle who is 31 years old, spent a lot of time with the Cincinnati Bengals and then with the Baltimore Ravens, so he has some overlap with a couple coaches on the Colts roster. So we'll talk a little bit about him in the defensive segment and speculate how he can kind of slide into this roster. And then some injury updates. Zaire Franklin was still out with his ankle injury. Shane Steichen did say, I believe he said in his post-practice conference that like they are hoping to get him back this week. That would be a really great development. Kenny Moore was returned to practice today. He missed last week's, the last practice of last week with a knee injury.
Saturday.
Saturday. And then Alec Pierce did miss today with a foot injury, but Shane Steichen did say it was just a blister on his foot and he'll be back likely tomorrow. So far the Colts are pretty healthy. Knock on wood, knock on all the wood you can around you, but the Colts are staying fairly healthy. But Jake, we have to get into the biggest news of the day when it comes to practice, and that's that the quarterbacks really showed out when the pads went on today. You got Anthony Richardson as 6 of 6 in the notes here. Daniel Jones is 4 of 5, and Jones's lone incomplete pass was a drop pass, I believe, by Michael Pittman Jr. is what I saw in a couple of people's notes. So quarterbacks had an efficient day. I think Richardson had 2 or 3 of those completions were 10 plus yards down the field. Jones, I think it was like 1, or I think it was 2 of his were 10 plus yards down the field. So this wasn't just checkdowns and like, you know, really minor stuff. It was guys going through their reads, finding open guys and making plays down the field. So, you know, finally 5 days into this quarterback competition, Jake, we have a day where we can feel really good about the two quarterbacks.
Which is, I don't want to say surprising, but I mean, I didn't expect it to be like this already the first day after Saturday. You know, when I said it was an atrocious performance, they combined to go 9 of 28 on Saturday. And now look at them. They go 10 for, 11? So that's a lot better. And then that's with the pads on in a moment where, you know, to me, that kind of skews towards the defense, you know, a lot more physicality. The cornerbacks, especially a guy like Charvarius Ward, getting physical with receivers, being able to throw timing off. That was another thing, as I thought timing probably today would be not great. But, you know, from what I heard, I actually heard specifically about timing and anticipation and that it was pretty good. So I'm pleasantly, I'll say pleased to say the quarterbacks performed this well. And like you said, it wasn't just checkdowns either. Because just a couple practices ago when Anthony had his previous best practice of the summer, it was a lot of shorter stuff. And I said, awesome. We've been waiting for him to take some of the boring stuff and do it. But this was a mix of a lot of it. You know, I read about Will Mallory had a chunk play. Pittman had a couple with Anthony, I think. So Tyler Warren had a catch and run, which that was on a screen. That was a short one. But, you know, kudos to Warren for, you know, proving that he can get that yak ability out there. So Jones as well. I think we've kind of skewed a little bit more towards Anthony over the last week, just because, Jones has been a little underwhelming to this point, but Anthony, it's been very kind of boom or bust. But Jones had a solid day as well. So his lone incompletion, again, I think was just kind of a tough drop by Michael Pittman Jr., like you mentioned. But, good. I had noticed that with Jones, it looked like there were chemistry issues for sure. And for that to be improving with the pads going on, I think is a very, very encouraging sign.
Yeah, no, for sure. I was talking with a good friend of the show, John, who actually came up from, I believe, Georgia. So shout out to John. But he was telling me about what he saw from the Colts quarterbacks today. And he said this, and again, this is just what John told me. So you guys can certainly take that with a grain of salt if you want. But he said, from coming up to camp the last couple of years, I think the only one he's missed is Phillip Rivers. He said the practice he saw from Anthony Richardson today was the best overall practice he's seen from a Colts quarterback in the times that he has come up here to watch the team. And that's even including the last 2 years, seeing Anthony Richardson in previous environments with this Colts team. Mentioned again, just that the ball never touched the ground in 7-on-7s or 11-on-11s with Richardson. Had a couple really nice plays, a couple layered throws deep too. He particularly told me about one that Richardson layered over a couple defenders to Pittman down the field, made some really nice throws on the move as well, and just looked good getting it to the short stuff. But he also said that Daniel Jones was better than he expected as well. And Daniel Jones made a couple really nice throws, including a deep one over the middle to either, I think it was Ashton Dulin is what he said, but it could have been the one to Will Mallory that other people have been saying as well. So again, take it with a grain of salt because it's not one of us there, but also it sounds like it was a really good day. Everyone, every beat reporter, every post-practice notes have been saying that Richardson had a fantastic day, and Jones was also pretty solid out there. So, look, this is the best case scenario, obviously, for a quarterback competition. You want these guys to be playing well and look good, and you want it to be a tough decision at the end of summer. And after a couple shaky practices, a couple ups and downs early in this summer practices, this has been a pretty good day for the Colts, and hopefully it continues with the pads on the rest of summer.
Yeah, to continue on John's point, Kevin Bowen said, going into year 3, this was the best practice he's seen Anthony have. And that's big because, Kevin has also seen OTAs, mini camps, like in-season practices. So this is dozens and dozens, if not at least 100 practices that Kevin has seen and called this one the best one from him. The layered throws, those deep in breakers and everything that outside of a go route or a deep post is kind of Alec Pierce's bread and butter. He wasn't out there today, but the other guy's picking it up and making it look good. So yeah, this is really good. And we got, Tuesday, they're off again Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday night. That's going to be a late one. And then Saturday, Sunday. I think there's going to be pads again tomorrow and Thursday night. So we'll see how this all looks. Continuing with the pads, what adjustments the defense makes. A guy like Charvarius Ward, I'm not going to say he had a poor day, but like in these back and forth battles, there was a couple guys that maybe made big plays against him. And I don't think he's the kind of guy that's going to like that. He's going to be looking to prove a point tomorrow. So this is big. I'm excited to see the offense finally step up because the defense has been good every single day. The secondary has been awesome. They have been aggressive against the passes, and they have made the quarterbacks have a tough time. They've made these receivers not look so great. And to see the offense finally step up in a manner where it should have been the defense's advantage today, I'm pretty optimistic about that. Because, again, we just got back from Saturday being such a low point for the quarterback. So let's see how they can build on this.
Yeah, and one thing I want to touch on really quick, and I'll certainly expound upon this in later episodes, but Owen Stevens in our comments here asked about Anthony Richardson's mechanics, his form, if you've seen many changes from him so far in camp. From the things I've seen so far in camp, I will say the couple of aspects that I think he's been working on a lot better with mechanics is setting his feet on the crossing routes and the ones coming across, like the moving targets. He really did struggle in his first 2 years of setting his feet ahead of receivers on moving targets rather than setting it to where they are. So what you really saw in his first 2 years with the Colts is he was really good at hitting, targets that were at a standstill, targets that were hitting like spot routes and curl routes and hitches, but did struggle with like crossing routes and drags across the middle of the field. So I do think he's looked a little bit better there. And then especially on the move, getting out of the pocket And instead of trying to throw on the run, because he's not this super flexible passer, he's very explosive passer, but not very flexible. He needs to reset his feet when he gets out of the pocket. I think he's been doing a lot better with that, especially on that big throw. I think it was on practice 3 that you shouted out, Jake, to Pittman. Seeing that video, seeing him reset his feet as he threw the ball to Pittman, and that ball was perfectly on target. I think we have seen some growth in terms of the mechanics and getting them where they need to be. The big question is, how natural do they look when the bullets are flying in the preseason and in these joint practices coming up with the Ravens? So that will be big. But so far, I think we've seen some good things from Anthony Richardson and his mechanics. But that's all we have for the quarterback talk today. We'll certainly talk more about QB mechanics, I'm sure, in the future and stuff like that. But coming up, we got the rest of the offense to focus on and how a couple receivers made some good plays. And apparently the offensive line also won the day in the trenches as well.
This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. Fantasy football is back. You know your draft. If you haven't already done it, you're probably getting that scheduled on the books. So fire up that group chat, get your draft board ready, and buckle up for a season filled with breakouts, busts, and all the overreactions that we all live for. It's all going down on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, Zach and I, as always, are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. I mentioned before, I've been in at least like 3 Yahoo leagues for a decade plus. I just really like their interface. I think their waiver wire feature is better than anybody else's as well. So I've always been a really big fan of playing fantasy over there on Yahoo. And to celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days, giving you the more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win. It all begins on August 4th. So stay tuned to get started by creating or joining a Yahoo Fantasy Football League at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. And let's make this fantasy season the best one yet. Welcome back, everydayers. All right, so we just discussed the quarterbacks, but there were some guys out there helping them out and helping them look good. And one of them that I'm going to start with is a guy who, just like the quarterbacks, needed a bounce-back day. A.D. Mitchell. He has not had the best camp so far, and that's me putting it lightly. Like, he has, up until today, had really not had any, positive mental notes that I'd made about him. He was slipping on the grass. He was dropping balls. He was not coming down with contested catches. It was just, such a underwhelming performance for him up to this point. But on Saturday, the Colts finally got into one-on-ones, and it was still a rough performance for AD. He didn't win any of them. The ball placement wasn't always good, but one-on-ones is where a guy like him is really supposed to be able to shine, because he's almost always going to be the better athlete or bigger than the guy covering him. So those kind of matchups really go in his favor. And it sounds like today it really went well for him. And it couldn't have gone better because it was against Charvarius Ward, which mentally I've been thinking, next time we talk to Shane or Lou Anarumo, we need to ask him if they're going to start giving A.D. Mitchell the Alec Pierce treatment, where as a rookie, Alec Pierce, they had Stephon Gilmore shadow him basically all of training camp to get him ready for the league. And I was thinking maybe they should probably do that with A.D. and Charvarius Ward. They haven't really done that as far as the live team drills, 11-on-11s. But AD did beat Ward twice today, once on a fade route for a touchdown, and another one, I guess, that was on kind of a deep one down the sideline. So that's what I think a young guy like this needs, is confidence-building moments. Because the routine stuff that should just not be so much in your head just isn't being converted on his part. So I think you get some big positive moments like this, and that should help him moving forward.
Yeah, and just stuff like this reminds us of how young he is and how high the potential really is in his game. We can get low on him for bad practices, but that skill set is still there. I truly believe that if you were to stack all the receivers in football and ask them to go one-on-one with different corners around the league, I think Mitchell would be in the top 15, 20, 25, that kind of range in terms of hardest to cover one-on-one. I mean, we saw it last year when the Colts really wanted to get him the ball. They put him on an island one-on-one against top-tier corners like Derek Stingley, Christian Benford, and he was winning. He was getting wins. He was getting open, and the ball getting to him was a little hit or miss, but he was able to win those routes. It's just about doing the simple things, doing the things like being able to come down with the ball, winning contested catches when there isn't great separation, staying on your feet in and out of your cuts, and making things look a little bit more fluid and clean. If he can just figure those things out, this can be a top tier receiver in the league. He just really needs to take those steps and just develop the confidence, develop the play strength that you're looking for. So it's great to hear good days like this, especially against, an all-pro corner like Charvarius Ward. Iron sharpens iron, and that's a good thing to see in training camp for sure.
Yeah, without a doubt. So another guy I wanted to mention, just because, being the top player at your position on a team, when you're doing things well, it often goes overlooked or just unmentioned altogether. As I read through notes and stuff today, Michael Pittman Jr.'s name kept coming up over and over, with whether it was Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson. The guy made some big plays today. He had a big one along the sideline in what was described as maybe Anthony's best throw of camp. I think he had a couple good deep end breakers. So like Pittman had a good day, although he had what was also described as maybe the worst drop of the day. Daniel Jones only incompletion, but Pittman's been pretty consistent. He's had some tough matchups with Ward throughout camp where he's obviously not going to win all of those. But he's not usually going to be matched up against Charvarius Ward every week. And so he's made some good plays during camp. I'd still give the baton to Alec Pierce for receiver of camp so far. But it's good to see Pittman in his own right kind of rebounding and having a big performance, because let's also not forget he has a lot to prove to, everybody this year again, because that back injury just really screwed things up for him last year. And seeing a healthy Michael Pittman Jr., who is going to remind some people of what he's capable of this year. Like it's good to see that guy back.
Yeah, I'm just happy that he's back and healthy, because he is, I call Josh Downs like the pace setter of the offense, and I call Alec Pierce the deep threat of the offense. But Michael Pittman Jr. is the everything in between. He's a little bit of both, and he's a lot of the middle when it comes to what those guys bring to the offense. And he's arguably the most essential piece of this, because Downs is a great underneath option. Pierce is a great deep threat, but this thing doesn't work without the middle of the field and with the intermediate game. And then with Pittman doing a little bit of both the other things that those two guys do. Like, he is the number one wide receiver on this team. He just wasn't healthy last year. So it's good to see him back on the field, back healthy. Now let's just catch the ball when it's thrown your way, when it comes to these little drops he's having in camp. But I don't have any worries about Pittman. He's, 1,000-yard receiver, consistent player. Even last year when he could barely move, he was 800 plus yards in this offense with two bad quarterbacks back there. So, I never get worried about Michael Pittman Jr. But one player that I am intrigued to talk about here is tight end Tyler Warren. I did hear a lot of really good things from people, especially when it came to his big catch and run that you have listed in the notes here, Jake. I heard it was on a tight end screen, is what I heard from people. And that is something that's really intrigued me since Tyler Warren was selected. Is we've seen with Shane Steichen in the last couple of years, him try to run these tight end screens with Mo Alley Cox and Drew Ogletree,
which is crazy.
Right. Here's the thing. Those guys are big, bruising guys. So when they get the ball in their hands, they'll fall forward for an 8-yard gain. But Tyler Warren is a ball carrier. This is a guy who has a quarterback background, who looks like a running back or a fullback in the open field. Heck, he looks like John Riggins in the open field sometimes, with that 44 and just the big shoulder pads. It's why he wore the number at Penn State. So actually getting it to a tight end who has that legit run after catch ability, and a guy who knows how to follow his blocks, and a guy who, just can bring that physicality when he has the ball in his hand. I am so excited for the tight end screen game with Tyler Warren, because we really haven't seen it with Shane Steichen. He's really, really tried to get it going. And I think they're going to let Tyler Warren do a lot of work after the catch this season, get him the ball in space and just let him work.
I think another key part of that is, I think when you see that around the league with the few tight ends who it can be run with, if you catch the defense off guard, like they're not set yet, or, they're substituting or something, that can be an enormous play. That you can get some tight ends who are not, the fastest guys in the world getting 30, 40, 50 yards on those plays. And a guy like that is used to having that drawn up for him over and over and over from Penn State. So again, that would probably be my go-to play for the Colts offense when they recognize that the defense is not ready and they're not set. I think that would be the way to go. Speaking of tight ends, Will Mallory, my infatuation with the third, fourth, fifth tight end spots on this team, it continues. Will Mallory has quietly had an awesome camp. One of my biggest concerns with him, other than not really being a blocker, is he's not always strong at the catch point. Like if he is in a contested catch, if it's not like right where he can get it and the defender is able to work for it as well, he's usually not going to come down with it. But he has had like 3 or 4 instances this summer where he had really strong hands and held on to balls that no one would have been upset if he would have dropped after he got hit. So he had 2 chunk plays today, I think, one of each with Anthony and Daniel Jones. So he continues a big summer. Don't want to overlook the offensive line either. With the pads on, you want to see which line is going to do better, or is it just going to come to kind of a stalemate, whatever. Sounds like the offensive line had the advantage today. It was Bortolini with the 1s. So if you're tracking this at home, on the days that Daniel Jones gets the initial first-team reps, that's when Tanner Bortolini is your starting center. And then it goes vice versa. Pinter kind of follows Richardson and so on and so forth. But no, the offensive line sounds like they did really well today. Obviously set the table well for the quarterbacks to have time to throw and deliver the ball accurately and with good timing and poise. And then opened up running lanes for guys. It sounds like DJ Giddens had a really productive day as well. A guy that if you open up a little crease, he can kind of make a lot more happen with it. So kudos to the offensive line for winning the day.
Yep. And Jake will be there tomorrow. He will be our boots on the ground again tomorrow. Yep. And that's all he'll be watching is the offensive line and defensive line, because I'm going to tell him he has to. So he's going to,
I want to watch one-on-ones, that's for sure.
Yeah, he will be watching O-line, D-line. So we'll have a full entire segment on O-line, D-line tomorrow. Don't worry, guys. We will bring that back to you guys tomorrow. But coming up, we have to talk about the defense and how, yes, these quarterbacks had their best day of camp, but these defensive backs were still making some plays. And we just have to highlight, again, that this defensive backfield might be pretty darn good this year.
We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show that you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories and not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. But that's where Gametime comes in. Gametime makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. If you're tired of the endless scrolling trying to find the best deals, then Gametime's Zone Deals picks the best seats in your section for you. And if you ever wonder what your view will actually look like before you buy, like if it's a new venue you've never been to, they have got a panoramic seat view, so there's no awful surprises. And the price you see with Gametime is the price that you pay, not a ton of hidden fees and all that good stuff. You know, you pay for $45 tickets and then boom, it costs you over $100 somehow with all the service fees and all that junk. Gametime's not about that. So take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back, everybody. We are recapping day 5 of Indianapolis Colts training camp, which we discussed was a great day for the quarterbacks and the offense in general. But now let's look at the defense, which has easily been the most consistent unit, best side of the ball throughout camp so far. We're going to check in with our daily Joe Bacci update. Apparently making plays again in the passing game. My guy Noah Compton was up there in the stands today, and I saw that he had an interception off of Daniel Jones. Don't know if it was like during 7-on-7s or the 1-on-1s, what have you. It said it was during teamwork, but yeah, Joe Bacci making more plays happen in the passing game. Again, creating an interesting conundrum whenever Zaire Franklin comes back. You got this guy who's killing it every day, and now your no doubt expensive starter comes back. Well, you kind of want to find a way to still use this guy who's got all this momentum.
Yeah, no, for sure. Joe Bacci certainly seems like he's making a case for himself, and it's always great to hear, 28-year-old guy, I think he's 28 years old, has been in the NFL for a while, has kind of been waiting for his chance, and now he's finally at a team where he's getting this opportunity to run with the ones in camp, and he's making the most of it. So hopefully he can keep carrying this into the preseason, and I mean, it sounds like he's certainly going to earn a roster spot at this point, but at least earn, some playing time throughout the year, I think could certainly be on the table for Bacci.
Yep. And then Owen here asked about Jalen Carlisle. He said, haven't heard any press around him, good or bad. There's none to report, really. I'm sure there are good things coaches are seeing on film, like, filling the run in certain spots and everything. But as far as like impact plays, I haven't noticed anything yet. I'm just glad that he is on the field at this point of the offseason. During the season, he was out nursing that shoulder surgery during the entire spring program. I'm just glad he's here now. We saw him in game action last year look really good, so I'm not concerned about him. But I too am waiting on some of the big plays. He's a guy I've kind of been thinking, we haven't heard much yet. So I kind of nailed that one, Owen. Looking beyond the linebackers, this was a big day for the DBs and cornerbacks, Zach. So Jalen Jones was thrown at 4 times in one-on-ones and had PBUs on all of them. Kenny Moore went up against Josh Downs twice and on consecutive plays got pass breakups there. Juju, I heard, throughout the day, whether it was 11 on 11s, 7 on 7s, 1-on-1s, pretty much every setting, Juju Brents was able to make a big play happen as well. And then another guy who we'd been kind of waiting on splash plays. So Justin Wally, obviously one of the guys with the most buzz surrounding him during camp, based on how much playing time he was getting and what the coaches were saying. He hadn't really made many notable plays yet, but he did today. He apparently kind of climbed the ladder and knocked the ball away from Tyler Warren. That was a real challenge. So it's good to see him, who again got first team reps today, opposite of Charvarius Ward and Kenny Moore. Starting to make plays now that he continues to get all that playing time. So throw Cam Bynum in there as well as a guy who had another couple pass breakups, and huge day for the DBs.
Yeah, and I really like that this cornerback 2 competition feels like, again, like an iron sharpening iron type situation, because we've seen in the past with the Colts where we've had like camp competitions where one or both the guys have really fizzled out, and it's like, well, I guess we got to start one of these guys, I guess, by the end of camp. And it's not really like the better play, like the best player is playing, or like that these guys made themselves better in camp. But it feels like with all 3 of these corners fighting for cornerback 2, like it feels hard to not play them, because Juju Brent's having the best camp of his life. He's having a healthy camp too, which is great.
Justin Wall, the only camp of his life, essentially.
Right, the only camp of his life, but that means it's the best one by comparison. Justin Wally coming here and competing like the Colts expected, and then Jalen Jones just doing Jalen Jones things and being a pass breakup machine. I think this is a situation where all these guys are just making themselves better because they're in this competition. And it's kind of what we've been yelling about at corner for years with Chris Ballard, is like, just bring in more real competition. Let these guys push themselves, especially with what we know of the mentality of like a Jalen Jones and even Justin Wally, from the things that we've, seen and heard from him, where it's like, these guys will get better if you keep pushing them, because they are just arrogant, confident corners that just want to play football and just want to fight for every inch. And I think just adding the competition just makes these guys better and more desperate and more physical out there. So for the first time in the Chris Ballard era, we're looking at the cornerback room and being like, well, I feel pretty good about it. I mean, someone's going to have to sit between Jalen Jones, who as a 2-year starter, who's played fairly well over 2 years, Justin Wally, a top 100 pick who's really shined in camp, or Juju Brents, who's a 2nd-round pick who is finally healthy and doing some good things. So it's kind of an embarrassment of riches, but at a position like corner, where we've seen how the injuries can stack up, I would rather have an embarrassment of riches than have nothing at all like we've had in the past. So awesome. It's great to have this much depth at corner, and then to have, again, Pro Bowler Kenny Moore, All-Pro Charvarius Ward, and then on the back end, 2 safeties that you feel good about, and Bynum and Cross. Like, it feels good to have a defensive backfield like this, along with Lou Anarumo coming here with his scheme.
Yeah, without question. It feels good for there to be a true may the best man win situation going on. It's not like there has to be a winner by default. Like, they literally are going to have a ton of content to dig through to figure out who they want to start there. And beyond that, like, I mean, we know Lou, he's a multiple guy when it comes to his schemes. Like, he's probably thinking up of new ways to use all these guys that he has at his disposal. Before we move on to some of the defensive line stuff, I wanted to mention, just sticking in the secondary, Hunter Wohler is another guy who, if you're following me and Joel Erickson, you probably are noticing he is having a quiet camp. I think that he gets on the field during the regular season. I think he's really going to endear himself to fans. He's kind of a throwback. He is a hard hitter. So the other day he nailed Will Mallory twice. One of them Mallory held on, but the other one he broke up the pass. I guess he had a big hit today during the developmental period at the end of practice. That's what Joel wrote up today. Now that the pads are on and that guy has a little more clearance to be physical. You know, the fans here love a hard hitter as long as he doesn't suck everywhere else. Like you don't get the Andrew Sendejo treatment. You know, Sendejo was just an assassin, but he was just not good anywhere else besides the physicality. But Woller's got a little versatility to him, linebacker, safety versatility, hard hitter. I think guys are really going to like him. But moving on to the defensive line real quick, they did get into the one-on-ones finally, O-line, D-line, and it looks like a few of the standouts from there, Latu, that's obviously a breath of fresh air, JT Tuamaloau, and Tyquan Lewis all had some really good reps during one-on-ones.
Cool. Awesome. And real quick, I do want to mention this too, because I'm so excited about it, and I've been holding it in throughout this entire episode. But the guy the Colts signed today, Josh
Tupou.
Yeah. Gosh, sorry. I'm so excited that I forgot his name. Josh Tupou, defensive tackle, played with Cincinnati Bengals, played with the Baltimore Ravens. Again, 6'1", like 350 pounds. Like he is massive player. We had a commenter here ask about thoughts on the new defensive tackle, and is it a sign that Neville Gallimore is not impressing? I don't think it means that whatsoever. I think it means we can actually have Neville Gallimore play some 3-tech. Where he should be playing. You know, Tupou is a nose tackle. And by nose tackle, like I don't even mean Grover Stewart nose tackle where Grover can do a little bit of other things. Like this is a pure nose tackle. Like he might only come on the field if there's 5 defensive linemen on the field, and he's going to be the actual nose tackle. He is massive. He's a run defender. He doesn't do anything else but defend the run and eat up space in the middle. And it's exactly what I've been begging for the entire offseason, even going back to last offseason. Like,
it's what you wanted Raekwon Davis to be, essentially.
Yeah, basically. But even Raekwon Davis, like, yes, he was like 320-ish, low 330s, but he didn't really play to that size. This is like an Al Woods type, just big boy on the interior that can eat up space. And I don't care how good you are. Just literally get in the way, eat up blocks, let the linebackers get to the ball. That's all I ever ask. So thank you. Thank you for giving me a 31-year-old, 350-pound dude, Colts. I think this is going to be a prime practice squad guy. I don't think he's going to make the initial 53, but I think he'll be a practice squad guy that they'll call up on Sundays probably for a handful of games this year. Maybe makes the roster late in the season as injuries pile up. And I think he'll get a good chunk of playing time because of his experience with Lou Anarumo. But oh man, I just wanted a one-tech or / nose tackle behind Grover for so long. And finally it's a big boy. And not, again, these 310, like 305, like, or like a guy like Gallimore who is like 320, but like he doesn't play like a 320-pound guy. He's more of a finesse type guy. Give me the big boys who can just eat space. Finally, we have one coming here to Indy.
No, Gallimore has got nose sides but a 3-tech skill set. So again, pumped that he should be free to actually be used in that manner. And we're not getting out of here without doing the kicker battle.
I tried to get rid of it. I tried to cover up enough space at the end.
All right, so they've only kicked one other day so far. They did one day last week, and they both Spencer Schrader and Maddox Trujillo both missed 2 kicks. So Spencer Schrader kicked today. He nailed all 6 of them. Basically, the distances varied from extra point distance to like 54 yards, and he nailed all of them. Trujillo didn't kick at all. I think the plan, what Shane kind of alluded to the other day, is they're going to give, like, I would imagine the next time they kick, it'll be all Trujillo. They basically want to try and even the load a little bit.
I see.
I was still a little surprised because they normally do have guys kick on the same day. But yeah, Spencer Schrader nailed 6 of them today, all 6. Trujillo did not kick, so he still sits with 2 misses. I think he was like 3 of 5 that day. So yeah, burning kicker news for Zach. He needed to know it.
It's just kicking. Trujillo can go home and just kick 1,000 kicks at
kick a couple trash cans for the Letterkenny fans.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I guess that works there. So If you guys get that reference, let us know in the comments section.
I want to know there are Letterkenny fans in the comments.
Okay, good. All right, guys, that's all we have for today. Don't worry, though. Jake will be back at Colts facility tomorrow morning covering all things Colts practice to give you guys the O-line, D-line rundown and also the update on the personal protector and the gunner position because we missed that today with Jake not at practice.
It's true, man. That's what you lose.
I missed it, man. I missed it. But guys, we do want to remind you that the Locked On NFL Top 100 is here, voted on by the NFL host of Locked On Podcast Network. Our Top 100 was formed by experts that cover these teams and players every single day. Find the full list on Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you want to become a Locked On Colts insider and chat with us directly and get that insider scoop, follow the link in our show notes. And if you don't already, make sure you're following at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at Zach Hicks2, all on socials. Also, subscribe to us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. We love your guys' ratings, reviews, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow afternoon.